Ya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And which one is it? Okay. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 18, entitled The Battle Between Lord Boar and Hiranyaksha, text 14 and 15. Sijanamarshita swasan manyu prachalitindriyaha asajatarasa daityo gadaya nyayanadarim. Having indignantly all his senses shaken, hissing indignantly, all his senses shaken by wrath, the demon quickly sprang upon the Lord and dealt him a blow with his powerful mace. Text 15. Bhagavam stu gadavegam vishis... Oh, sorry. Yes. Vishistam ripunorasi avancheyatirachino yogaruda ivantakam. Bhagavam stu gadavegam Vishistam ripunorasi Avansayatirashino Yogaruda ivantakam. Ladies. Bhagavan, the Lord. 2. However, Gadavigam, the blow of the mace. Vishistam, thrown. Ripuna, by the enemy. Urasi, at his breast. Avanchayat, dodged. Tirashinaha, aside. Yoga arudaha, an unaccomplished yogi. Eva, like. Antakam, death. The Lord, however, by moving slightly aside, dodged the violent mace blow aimed at his breast by the enemy, just as an accomplished yogi would elude death. Purport. The example is given herein that the perfect yogi can overcome a death blow, although it is offered by the laws of nature. It is useless for a demon to beat the transcendental body of the Lord with a powerful mace, for no one can surpass his prowess. Those who are advanced transcendentalists are free from the laws of nature, and even a death blow cannot act on them. Superficially, it may be seen that a yogi is attacked by a death blow, but by the grace of the Lord, he can overcome many such attacks for the service of the Lord. As the Lord exists by his own independent prowess, by the grace of the Lord, the devotees also exist for his service. Oma Jnana Timarandasya Gyanandana Salakaya Shakshurun Minitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. When Srila Prabhupada took his birth, his father made an astrological chart at the time of his birth, which is customary practice, and it said that Prabhupada, that this child will open many temples and so on, and it was also mentioned that that in his 70th year he would go through, would possibly die at that time. And it said, but if he survives that, then he will then he will have a very glorious life. So Srila Prabhupada did go through that death blow, but by the arrangement of Krishna, he was given 11 more years to, and basically he built his whole mission in those 11 years. In 11 years, Prabhupada went 14 times around the world, and Prabhupada opened so many temples, Prabhupada made so many disciples, wrote so many books. In this way, Prabhupada, his life was not just governed by karma, but his life was directly governed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And although it appeared that the influence of karma was still acting, it appeared to be so because astrologically one could see that a death blow would be there in his 70th year, right? And still, but so although it appears that the pure devotee or the yogi is under the influence of the material nature, he is not. Of all yogis, yoginam api sarvesam matkaten antaratmana, it is that yogi who has a relationship with the Supreme Lord, who is the topmost in yoga. So when we're speaking here about yogi, we're speaking about devotee. And a devotee who is just fully dedicated to the Lord, such a devotee is under the protection of the Supreme Lord. And that is the founding principle of spiritual life, the dependence on Krishna. For example, Srila Prabhupada started preaching in New York, but yes, someone had arranged that he could go to Butler, right? But he didn't come. Obviously, he didn't cross the ocean to be in Butler. But he was arranged he could go there, and as he landed in New York, okay, he went by bus to Butler and he started there. But, of course, he had to go back to New York, which is really what Prabhupada came for, because Prabhupada saw New York as the gateway to the world. He understood that at that point in time, New York was culturally predominating the world, and he knew that whatever I do in New York will reverberate around the world. And so Prabhupada started preaching in New York. And initially, he just stayed in some loft, like artists were often given some space, some loft, large area just above some industrial complex, and Prabhupada was there on the Bowery, which was not a very good area, just staying there with that, with a boy who was not all the way okay, was taking too many drugs. And Prabhupada was there on that loft, and it was there that one journalist came to meet him. And when the journalist came to meet him, then he saw that the space was filled with young people who were all hippies that looked a bit spaced out, to say the least. And then he saw the Swami on the other side of the loft, and he walked across and he said, Swami Bhaktivedanta, I presume. Just like Stanley and Livingston meeting at the River Nile. Anyway, saying, and then he asked Prabhupada a question, and he said, what are all these people doing here? And Prabhupada said, I don't know, and they don't know either. And that was the situation. So Prabhupada's early followers, right, they were like somehow or other by Krishna's arrangement there, but what their real interest was in Krishna consciousness, or their real capacity was to grasp Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada didn't know. But Prabhupada had faith, faith that the holy name would act. He had faith in the words of Lord Chaitanya, or really Lord Nityananda, who said, Pritivityache yatara garadigram sarvata pracharo hoy bemoranam, that in every town and village on this planet, the holy name would be chanted. And so Prabhupada said, therefore, there are devotees everywhere. This statement means that there are devotees everywhere. They're already there. And we only have to go, and their natural devotion will awaken. And with that faith that there are devotees everywhere, Prabhupada went to the Western world. One year I was in South Africa, and there was a sannyasi from India, from the Gaudiya Math, and came to our Rath Yatra in Durban, and they asked me to sort of talk a little bit to him and make him feel welcome. So we were talking, and he was saying, traveling and preaching in the West is very, very difficult. He said, because the people they're not following the regulations. So that is very difficult. It is very difficult. But Prabhupada had a different approach. Prabhupada's approach was simply engage people in chanting the holy name. And if they chant the holy name, then the holy name will act and will transform people, and then they will be able to follow things that otherwise were impossible. And we are the living confirmation of that principle, right? Because what are we doing here? How is it possible for us to live like this by such principles? Impossible. It's nothing to do with where we came from. But somehow or other, all this is going on by the arrangement of the Lord. We are now in the middle of the pastime of Lord Varaha fighting with the demon Hiranyaksha. Earlier in the chapter, Hiranyaksha is stating that you have no right to this planet Earth because this is in the lower domains and that has been given under our control. The heavenly planets, okay, are under your control, but this area is not under your control. So what are you doing here? And you've killed some of the Daityas simply because you keep yourself invisible. But, you will not defeat me with your mystic tricks. Right? Today, I will just kill you. And that was the plan. So Hiranyaksha was minimizing the Supreme Lord and seeing him like a demigod and seeing him like a jiva who had been empowered to control a particular area of the universe, just like he was. And therefore, he thought that he was the equal of the Supreme Lord. So this, and possibly the superior, right? Because who could match his strength? He had fought already. He had gone to Varuna. He had been in the ocean. He stood in the ocean, smashing the waves with his club. But that got boring after a while, that game. So he wanted to fight with Varuna, but Varuna said, I'm very old now, so I'm not a suitable person to fight anymore. But if you want to fight with someone, then you can fight with Lord Vishnu. He will defeat you. Who will defeat me? So his pride was making him blind. So pride is very dangerous. Even a little bit of false pride is dangerous. Even a little bit can make us judgmental, where we think that we are able to judge other Vaishnavas. And that is something that is very, very dangerous. Rather, our mood should be one to offer respect. As soon as we think this Vaishnava is doing this, and therefore I don't think it's appropriate. That's not our job unless we become a teacher or a leader, a man in charge. And even if one is made in charge, it's very difficult. Very difficult. As a spiritual master, one has to realize that one is not a spiritual master on his own strength. One is not a spiritual master on the strength of his own good qualities. One is simply a spiritual master by the blessings of the Vaishnavas, the blessings of Krishna, and by taking shelter of these blessings. Because the blessings of Krishna and of the Vaishnavas include transcendental instructions. Yaradeke Tarakaha Krishna Upadesh. So it is about Krishna Upadesh. Krishna Upadesh means the instructions from Krishna or the instructions about Krishna. So we need Krishna Upadesh. That is our shelter. Yes. Lord Chaitanya, it is very interesting that Lord Chaitanya did not write any books, right? And, many have wondered about that. And one may externally one might say, Lord Chaitanya didn't write any, he was too much in ecstasy and so on, so he didn't write any books. But no, in the earlier stages, in the Madhya Lila, we see Lord Chaitanya performing many pastimes. He could have written books at that time, but he did not. One thing we know, the fact that he left us 8 prayers puts a tremendous focus on these 8 prayers. Right? It just puts those prayers very central to his teachings. These are the 8 original prayers of Lord Chaitanya. Right? And in these 8 prayers, the entire process of devotional service is there. In the first prayer of the Siksastakam, we are seeing the process of cleansing the heart, Chetudarpanam Marjanam, the cleansing of the heart. And we see that cleansing of the heart is bringing the fulfillment that we have always looked for, and that it immerses us in the ocean of transcendental bliss. Right? But basically that it brings us to the point of the happiness that we have been hankering for our whole life. That is the beginning. The first prayer. In the second prayer, we hear Nam Namakari Bahudani Jasarva Shaktis, that all the energy, all the power of the Lord is within His holy name. Everything is there. The Lord, there's no difference. Nama Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Sudha Nitya Mukto Abhinatra Nami Nami. No, there's no difference between the holy name of Krishna and Krishna himself. And yet there is one difference, in that when we offend Krishna in person, what will we do? Then we can still chant the holy name to become purified. But if we offend the holy name, then there's nothing we can do. So in that sense, there's a distinction. The holy name is an especially merciful form of Krishna. So we're learning like that. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu takes us through various steps of devotional service. And in the third verse, he calls for humility and tolerance. So only then can we actually glorify all others. And that is our true, that is the Vaishnava. A Vaishnava is one who glorifies. A Vaishnava is looking for good qualities. A Vaishnava is adosha darshi. He doesn't see faults even when they're there. He just looks for the good qualities. And when there is some fault, apparently, then he'll find a reason to explain why it's not a fault. Right? In this way, adosha darshi, to not see any faults. And this is maybe one of the most important qualities we have to learn over the years to become adosha darshi. It's very difficult because as a conditioned soul, we are naturally inclined to look with a critical eye. So it's like, who is this guy? Right. Who is that? Who does he think he is? All these things come into the mind. And we see that when this magnifies, then even a devotee can develop the qualities of a demon. I mean, one example is Indra, who was devotional, but due to pride, wanted to kill the residents of Vrindavan, which is sort of on the demoniac side, one might say. So, in this way, this humility and glorifying others, that is our process. For many years in Radhadesh, they had a nice program on the New Year. On New Year's Eve, instead of firecrackers, they would just have a session that lasted 6 hours, where everyone was glorifying everyone. It was a long haul, but they really liked it. 6 hours they would sit and glorify all the devotees in the temple and whoever was there. And everyone said something nice about everyone else. It was very purifying. Also the sit was very purifying. 6 hours is purifying. But it was an interesting exercise. And any community could try that. Because this is our true business. This is Kirtaniya Sadahari. It is to always glorify. Kirti means glory. Kirtan really means glorification, right? So, not only to glorify Krishna, but to glorify also the Tadiya, yeah? Aradhanam sarvesham Vishnur aradhanam param, Tadiyanam samarchanam. The Tadiya, or the personalities, or the objects related to the Lord, Tadiya. So the devotees are also to be glorified. Madbhakta Puja Bhyadika says in the 11th canto that we must worship the devotee. In this third verse of the Sikshastakam, it doesn't just say to glorify the devotees. It is said to offer all respects to all others, to everyone, to all living beings. So to be respectful to all living beings, that is quite something. Prabhupada embodied all these qualities, and we of course are only learning these qualities, and we are only trying to cultivate these qualities. We're only meditating on such qualities. But that meditation should be very central. So then Lord Chaitanya takes us further and takes us to the point where we can give up desiring anything, any material things. Nadanam na janam na sundarim kavitam vajagadisi kamaye. Not desiring any wealth, any fame, any material advantages. You know, for a man, beautiful women, or for lady, any material things. Not desiring, just desiring Krishna. That is Lord Chaitanya. Then seeing himself as insignificant, not seeing himself as a great devotee, praying, not praying, oh Lord, please let me be a gopi in Vrindavan. No, Lord Chaitanya is praying, please let me be an atom at your lotus feet. The atom is the smallest thing, the smallest particle. That means, in other words, let me be the most insignificant particle. And once that is all established, then the later verses of the Sikshastakam take us into ecstatic Krishna consciousness, take us into Krishna consciousness in ecstasy and in pure love. So we see the full progression of from the beginning stages of purifying the heart, and to fixing ourselves in a proper attitude of humility, and then reaching the ecstatic stage and the stage of pure love. So when we are studying the lives of Hiranyaksha and of Hiranyakasipu, then we should, then we can study the demoniac mentality. Right? We can just look at, well, interesting story, interesting demon, wow, Hiranyaksha had golden hair, wow, and so on. But that's external. When we go deeper, then we see what is the mentality of this demon. What is his mood? And then, of course, whenever we read Bhagavatam, Bhagavatam is bringing us an understanding, an insight, and the insight it may be directed towards the world around us, and we can see how there are demoniac personalities, but we also can take the message of the Bhagavatam and apply it to ourselves. I call that introspection through the Bhagavatam. And I think that introspection through the Bhagavatam is a very important element of our spiritual life. The Bhagavatam then makes us more aware that maybe there is a little bit of a Hiranyakasipu in me as well, and maybe a little bit of Hiranyaksha as well. Maybe I have some of this, right? And maybe I also overestimate my own power. Srila Prabhupada would speak about being over-intelligent, over-intelligent, too intelligent, very intelligent, and then enamored by that intelligence. It's just like a beautiful lady, in scriptures sometimes, we have seen descriptions of where beautiful ladies are described, and then some men are falling down because of the beauty of that lady. And then it is described that, well, so it doesn't make the lady look so nice. It makes the lady look like a perpetrator, one who causes trouble, and makes innocent yogis fall down, right? But if we really look at it, it's not the lady, it's the beauty. It's the beauty that's the problem. And the beauty is not just a problem for the yogis, it's a problem for the ladies as well. Because some ladies, they also fall prey to their own beauty. Yeah, it's tough if you're beautiful. Yeah. See, I don't have to worry about that. That's that saves me some trouble. I don't have to walk around and, I know it is what it is, Yeah. Isn't it, Vrajajana? We don't have to worry about that. It's like it is what it is. But when you're beautiful, that's difficult, right? You're walking around and everyone is looking like, wow. And then, of course, so if you have that, then you also know your power. Yeah, you know your power. Here you are. You walk around and you know very well that you are the most beautiful person in the room. And everyone is looking. So then if you're looking at it, it's not only, my point that I'm trying to make here, it's the beauty that's the problem. And it's not only the yogis that get in trouble. The ladies may also get in trouble from their own beauty. It may start to control them. So the same thing is there for someone who's very intelligent, right? Someone who's very intelligent and who feels I'm more intelligent than others, may become attached to that intelligence. And then there is the danger that it become over-intelligent, start to rely too much on that intelligence. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was one of Prabhupada's intelligent disciples, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj was a brilliant personality. I have personal experience. Once Tamal Krishna Maharaj invited me for prasadam, and I wondered, why? Then he asked me to sit down at the table, and he served hot cauliflower pakoras, and he wanted to serve. He said, "No, you sit, I'll serve. Please take, please take, please take." So I took a cauliflower pakora. It was very hot. Put it in my mouth. So hot. It's so hot. I burned my mouth. I reached for the water, and there was no water. And I had this thing in my mouth, and then he said, "So, I wanted to talk to you." And I go, "No, I can't believe it." He put a hot plug in my mouth. And then he said, "So, and why are you doing this, and why are you doing that?" And I couldn't say anything, because usually... So that was very intelligent. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was very intelligent in many, many ways, and Prabhupada's trusted leader. But, Srila Prabhupada also spoke about the how the Lord expands himself in the various ways and becomes Mahavishnu, and from Mahavishnu, from his pores, all the universes appear, how Garbhodaksaya Vishnu enters each universe, and how in each of these universes Kshirodaksaya Vishnu enters, and how in these universes there are so many planets, and how on these planets there are so many continents, and on these continents there are so many countries, and on these countries there are so many cities, and amongst all these cities, there is one city called Los Angeles, and there is one devotee called Tamal Krishna Maharaj who thinks he is the controller of the whole universe. Prabhupada said like that in public. And of course, Tamal Krishna Maharaj in that story is the prototype, but all of us are like that. So, to be over-intelligent is a very dangerous thing. And I think, when I think about Srila Prabhupada, that is one quality that I recognize in Srila Prabhupada, that he was not trying to pretend. He was not trying to be greater than he was. He was the disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. I mean, who can match the intellect of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur? I mean, that's something. Prabhupada wasn't trying that. He wasn't trying. He was simply accepting. He was simply repeating. He was repeating the commentaries of the Acharyas in his purports, but then sometimes adding something of his own insights as well. And Prabhupada had this unique power, this power to make complicated things very simple. And he was able to present complicated Krishna consciousness in a very, very simple manner, so that, everyone could understand. And in this way, Prabhupada brought Krishna consciousness to the Western world. Once, one sannyasi, Satadanya Swami at the time, was in Mayapur, and Prabhupada had said that we should not, we should just only read his books, right? So one day, Satadanya Swami was walking with a book in his hand on the veranda in Mayapur, in the Lotus building. And Prabhupada said, "What is that book you're having?" And he said, "It's a book of your spiritual master." So he thought, now I've got him. He can't say anything against that, can he? And Prabhupada said, Oh, nobody can understand the books of my spiritual master. He said, he wrote those for me. That was it. You know, that was it. And it's like, I stood there like, okay. It was very nice. So Prabhupada translated the books of his spiritual master not only into English. You know, some books might have been in Bengali, not only Bengali to English, but he translated it by making it understandable from complex intellectual presentation to something that common people would understand. And Prabhupada translated the tradition for the modern world, where the tradition is lost. But somehow or other, Prabhupada translated Krishna consciousness in such a way that it would work for us. And Prabhupada in England, of course, Prabhupada arrived in England. And Tribhuvannath, who was one of the early English devotees, he was chosen to offer Prabhupada a garland. So he stood there with the garland, and Prabhupada arrived. And as soon as Prabhupada arrived, it was such, and he came in the room, it was such a presence that everyone fell on the ground, including Tribhuvannath. And then Prabhupada walked past, and then Tribhuvannath stood up, and there he was with his garland. And then there's all these devotees, so he had to climb over all the devotees to offer Prabhupada the garland. Anyway, somehow or other he managed. And then he sat down, and Prabhupada started his lecture. And when Prabhupada started his lecture, then Prabhupada said, Krishna consciousness is so simple, you might just miss it. And that's again this principle of humility, of being so simple. Just be a humble servant. What else is required? So this is this was my exercise today in introspection through the Bhagavatam. In this lecture, I kind of took the demoniac mentality of Hiranyaksha and sort of started to apply it towards the life of a sadhaka, towards the life of one who's trying to advance in devotional service. And of course, it's only in a sketching way. It may not cover the whole topic in every angle, but to establish a principle that such introspection through the scriptures is very helpful. Okay. Any questions, any comments? One sense, are they? Serving?
Are they serving the Lord by causing this suffering in the living entities? Because
yeah.
The way that resolving their karma.
Okay. When Jai and Vijay were cursed, they got the opportunity to. They had to go to the material world. The four Kumaras had cursed them. They could choose whether they wanted to be demons for 3 births, or whether they wanted to be devotees for 7 births. They chose to be demons for 3 births because then they could return sooner to their original position. Right? So then what happened is that when they actually became, the first time they became Hiranyakasipu and Hiranyaksha, and when they became, they were demons at that stage. It's not that they were devotees. Yes, of course, it's all in the greater plan of the Lord. Yes. But they were not consciously serving the Lord by acting as demons, right? And acting it out in that. No. At that point, they were covered, and they were in a demoniac mentality. Yeah, of course, they were part of the Lord's greater plan. Everyone is following my path in all respects, it is stated, right? So in one sense, everyone is used by Krishna as an instrument. All of us, everything, every living being is used as an instrument by Krishna. One time I was in Vrindavan, walking around on the Parikram mark, and it was very hot, and there was a dog, and the dog was sleeping next to a water pump. And then there was a little girl that was bringing water, and she had one pot, and then a big copper pot, and she filled it with water, and then suddenly she took the pot and turned it upside down on the head of the sleeping dog. And I tell you, that dog almost drowned. It was like water, came out everywhere. I mean, it was amazing to see this dog, like water, and this dog was just like practically drowning in this water. So it was interesting. I was looking at it and thinking, what's going on here now? Has this girl just committed some offense, to Vrijbasi dog, right? Said, yeah, but it's also a Vrijbasi girl. Or is the girl the reaction for some sinful things that this dog had to be purified from? Or is it both, Is the girl creating some new karma, and is the dog getting its old karma purified now? So we are looking how, and is the girl actually the instrument of the Lord? Yes, the girl was the instrument of the Lord. The dog had it coming. Had to go through a near drown experience. And so everything that happens is always happening by the Lord, and everything is always the plan of the Lord. So everyone is the instrument of the Lord. So the demons are also the instruments of the Lord. But Jai and Vijay had now lost their original consciousness, and now they were actually demons, Hiranyakasipu and Hiranyaksha. No one is a demon anyway, right? I mean, the demon state of consciousness is an artificial state. The original pure state of consciousness of the jiva is to be the eternal servant of Krishna. Krishna Nitya does. So if a living being becomes a demon, it's a temporary imposition on the eternal consciousness. So no one is a demon. And that is how we look at it. There is a devotee in everyone. Yeah.
By chanting the holy names, but offenses against the holy name can't be atoned for because you already, the holy name is the only possibility to atone for offenses against Krishna. So how do we atone for the offenses? There are 11 after all.
Yeah, I mean, then we have the mercy of Lord Chaitanya that helps us in the offenses that we make with the holy name, against the holy name. So we're making offenses in the chanting of the holy name. Therefore, we begin our chanting with chanting the Panchatattva mantra before we start chanting, because it says that will give us a certain level of ecstasy, and then as a result, we'll bring that back to the chanting, and Lord Chaitanya overlooks our offenses. So we get some benefit, get some results from the chanting. Otherwise, if one commits offenses, Bhaunu Jamani, what is it again? Oh gosh, Bhaunu Jamani Adhikari, Bhavani Jamani Adhikari Shravana Kirtanam Tavutanapaya Premadanam. That one can chant the holy name of the Lord for many, many births and not attain the desired success, which is Krishna Prem. So what to do? It is by that mercy of Lord Chaitanya that we're lifted above the offenses, and then it is by the chanting of the holy name that we are purified from the offenses. The combination of the two, mercy of Lord Chaitanya and the ongoing chanting of the holy name, are going to purify us from the offenses that we commit against the holy name. But we must, the first stage is the offensive stage of chanting. The second stage is the clearing stage of chanting. The third stage is the pure stage of chanting. So the clearing stage of chanting begins when we make a conscious effort to avoid offensives. The offensive stage of chanting, where we just are making the offenses, and we are, but we are chanting. It's like I was in Amsterdam, and in Amsterdam, just like in Germany, they really like their broodchen, yeah? And they call it een broodje, right? Een broodje. And this guy comes up to me and says, broodje Hare Krishna. Broodje Hare Krishna. And I said like, wow, what is that? What's that about? I mean, in my mind, I saw two big loaves of bread and myself in between, so the flapping, and the guy with a big mouth trying to take a bite, And I go like, what is this, I mean, this sounds offensive, It sounds like pretty offensive, right? Broodje Hare Krishna. But anyway, he said Hare Krishna, right? So I was thinking, well, okay, maybe even he had a demoniac conception in his mind, but he still gets purified by the chanting. So this is the offensive stage of chanting. Unknowingly he gets purified, but it's very slow. Then eventually he comes to the point of conscious chanting and trying to avoid offenses. That's the clearing stage. Then combined with the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, it sort of goes on. Then we gradually get purified from Namabhas to Sudanam and so on. Yeah, so such Namabhas, it says, that is, then we're not chanting the name, then we're chanting the dim reflection of the name. And that destroys karma and liberates us from birth and death. Then, as the karma gets destroyed, our sinful inclinations also change. Then our inclination towards being offensive is also minimizing. Then we can come to pure chanting. And we're trying to come to pure chanting. As sadhakas, we should at least be at the stage of clear chanting, clearing stage of chanting. Anyone? Yes.
Coming back to your answer when you quoted that everybody is following my path. So later on in this canto, it's mentioned, about the sufferings that the living entity goes through when he does this and when he does that. I don't know if you can remember this part. So I'm a little bit confused about how that everybody is following my path, like Krishna says, and how is it related to our free will. In the beginning of the canto, there is these pictures, and there's one picture about the living entities in the hellish planets being, are suffering in all kind of ways. And then in the next picture, there's a photo of baby Krishna sitting in the lap of Mother Yashoda. So it made me kind of bewildered, I don't know how to state the question properly, but at the same time, it seems like our free will to suffer, and how can Krishna allow such a thing?
Well, it's like we have minute independence. Krishna's given us minute independence, and we can choose. We make so many choices in this material world, isn't it? You know, we can choose to be here, or we can choose to be somewhere else. I mean, I chose to be here, but I also had an offer to fly to Mauritius, right? Now, there it would have been a little warmer. So, but then on the way there would have been the risk of maybe more being on a flight, and you know, if that's ideal right now for a 68-year-old man, I'm not sure. So I chose to come here. And I came back here, and now I've got the snow again. You know, it never ends, right? It's amazing. So we make apparent choices in this world, yes, but we cannot choose the amount of happiness or distress that we are getting. So we can choose circumstances, but we cannot choose what happiness we're getting, because that depends on our karma. So in that way, we are not actually free. There's the verse, Tasyaiva heta prayateta kovido, yad brahmatam talabhyate uparyada. That sometimes we go upwards in the universe, sometimes we go down in the universe, and it's just by our karma. So in one sense, we're not so free. Right, and it's we cannot go outside of karma. Yes, only when we take up devotional service, then we are really taking our destiny in our hands. Prabhupada explains. Otherwise, he says everything is predestined by karma. So, yes, we can choose. We either go into some automatic karmic machine that purifies us and sometimes gives us happiness, sometimes distress, or we take a devotional service. And then we actually take our destiny in our hand. Then we actually become liberated. Yeah. But otherwise, everything predestined. But within it you have a choice, to be here or in Mauritius. Mauritius, or in Mexico. Yeah. Finito? Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hey, hey, hey.